Our next panel does dive into unique experiences and the strengths of Native women in business and entrepreneurship. Each of our panelists have Montana roots and impressive careers that I'm excited to hear more about. So today's moderator for that panel is Misty Kuhl, Director of the Montana Office of Indian Affairs. And our Native Women Business Leaders panel features Vernell Chase, Director of Tribal Relations and Business Development at Flint Co., a construction company covering a number of states. Jennifer Weddle, she is from Denver, Colorado, and is of the Northern Cheyenne. She is co-chair of the American Indian Law Practice of a very large multinational law firm, and she's general counsel for the Coalition of Large Tribes, as well as Dr. Holly Mackey, Chief Executive Officer of the NSF AgTech Engine in North Dakota. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Good morning, beautifuls. It's so good to see you, and thank you very, very much for having us. Again, I'm Misty Kuhl. I am a citizen of Fort Belknap Indian Community. I'm Aani, and I'm just so excited to say I stacked this panel not only with like super kick-ass women, but also they're like my sisters, and I'm incredibly honored to be a part of this panel and have them with me today. So we hopefully have a lot of ground to cover for you, and so I'm just gonna dive right in. Are you guys okay with that? Great.
Absolutely.
So my first question is, please tell us about yourself, your organization, and how you landed that role. Jennifer, why don't you start?
Sure. So I'm Jennifer Weddle. I'm Northern Cheyenne, like my sister Holly here. I didn't grow up in Montana, but have been getting back here slowly, one brick after another over the years. I am a lawyer, went to Harvard Law School, and started working for tribes right out of law school at the Holland and Hart law firm, which I'm sure many of you know, and was there for about 9 years, and then joined Greenberg Traurig. That's the large multinational law firm that I never try to make anyone say in an introduction remark. And there I co-chair the American Indian Law Practice, representing tribes all over the country, including really significantly the Coalition of Large Tribes, which is the 52 tribes with reservations of 100,000 acres or more. Really covering everything that tribes need as governments, including their government-to-government relations with the United States, all the branches of the United States, federal government, and likewise with state and county governments. Broadly focuses across all areas of policy, from child welfare to agriculture to economic development, environmental issues, really everything that governments need. And it also includes a lot of litigation work in addition to the policy work. And I like to say I'm the only lawyer that's filed a brief in tribal court and the US Supreme Court at the same day. And I also do a lot of judicial appointments work, and I know some of you are going to Judge Bill Mercer's investiture later, and I serve on the committee that does all the evaluations for those judges. So you're welcome. Holly.
Thank you, Nash. So I want to introduce myself, but there's something that just caught my attention in the very beginning that I'd shared with Misty, and she said, you should share. So I looked up on stage and I thought, man, they're just really inclusive. Look at the medicine wheel colors on those microphone tops. So I thought like it was an extra effort to make us feel welcome, but turns out no. It's for the sound guy. But it's interesting. So then I spent the last 20 minutes or so really thinking about like who I wanted at what color. So when I told the story, it made sense, and then we got told to go into a certain order. But it's the order that I would have selected. And so I just wanted to point out, and depending upon the tribe, right, we have like birth and wisdom and guidance and strategy, and Jen is 100% like the start and catalyst of so many incredible things for Native women, and it fits, right? And East is new beginnings, right? Really thinking about entrepreneurship and how do you diversify, and what is that light, and what is the growth, and Vernell just really, really captures that. And with the red in the South, right, just thinking about healing and sustainability and prayer, and I tend to be the more introspective one that's the quieter one. And then with the North, black or blue, depending upon how your tribe puts it, is the wisdom and the understanding of who needs to be here today and accidentally what order they need to be on. And so thank you for being accidentally inclusive and taking the time to hear my version of how but that was my first impression. And that made a big difference to me, even if I was wrong, because it happens a lot. So my name is Holly Mackin. I'm not going to go like a whole bunch into you have the bio and the thing, but I just took a whole lot of time on the medicine wheel because I thought it was more important. But I'm the CEO and primary investigator for the National Science Foundation AgTech Engine in North Dakota. And also working in partnership, I know many of you I've met through the Montana Tech Hub. So we do a lot of work in Montana. I'm Northern Cheyenne as well. Grew up both on the reservation, and now my family lives in Miles City. We have a small business there. I currently live in Fargo. So if you go to Miles City, go to Unique Creations, pop in, say hi to Evan, my son. He's taking over our family business. He hates it, but do it. Tell him coffee's on Holly. And our work is really intended to drive rural economic development through innovation and ag tech solutions to solve for food security and really think about the ways that we can feed the world. And so part of that is not only just thinking about what we know to be true about agriculture now, but what are the technologies of the future that will ensure that from a national security perspective, if we were to end up in war, we could actually feed our people. We know that agriculture technology is one of the most targeted technologies in the world by malign foreign actors, as well as the technology that is least adopted by the people who need it the most, which are our growers and our producers. And so I have the distinct opportunity to work with really, really smart farmers all over the country and in Indian country, partnered with Coalition of Large Tribes to really think about the technologies growers say they need and to solve problems in rural communities connected to workforce development and economic development. I think to the previous speaker, we work with startups, entrepreneurship. We recruit people into the state and the region. We partner with Montana to think about what that looks like for eastern Montana and western North Dakota collectively, kind of the same conundrum that we have in North Dakota. And really, I just get to live the best life and have the best job in the world because I get to hang out with people like you and partnered with folks like Tony, and I get to work with all of these women. So I'm really blessed to be here, excited to be here, but also, sometimes it always feels like you're coming home full circle. And what I often tell people is, when we were little, I don't know, you're all different ages. When I was little, it was all about Africa and feed the world and, And I used to put these boxes together of cherry pie filling. I was 8. But my goal is people shouldn't be hungry. Okay? And in our communities, more people are hungry than need to be. More producers are losing money that they shouldn't be losing because of the political and the policy constraints that are over them, right? We want farmers' businesses to be profitable. We want producers to be successful. And we want people to be able to eat. And so I get to have this life where my entire job really is, as I thought when I was 8, to solve world hunger. And I think that that's an immense responsibility, but it's also an immense privilege, and I get to do that in lockstep with these women on stage, and it's really a rewarding experience for me.
Thank you, Holly. First of all, the power in this room is just amazing. On this stage, I'm very grateful to be here. And full circle is true. We come full circle, and one of the things that I say about Indian country is we're half a degree from everybody. What is that, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? In Indian country are half a degree away, and I've seen it. I've been very fortunate in my journey that I've been placed on, but a little bit, Pinamia, my name is Yellow Hair Woman, and so she said it was an accident. I actually think it was divine. I got the yellow mic, so I like to go ahead and look at it through my perspective and own that. So I'm gonna lean on, it was inclusive, and so it was divine. I was born and raised on the Fort Belknap Reservation, and I am Gros-Venn and Assiniboine. I'm enrolled as a Gros-Venn, but I was raised as Assiniboine. My stepdad, as well as my mother, are Assiniboine. Very blessed in my journey. I grew up as rodeoing, ranching. My grandparents owned Mexican Longhorns and were stock contractors in the rodeo world. I went to Miles City on a rodeo scholarship. I was supposed to be a special ed teacher because that's what I was told I was going to be. I'd be rodeoing in the summer, I would be teaching throughout the year. My life was planned out by my mother. I was going to be a fifth-generation teacher, and life has it as it was. I come home from college, and I would work for tribal construction, the planning department, and I had an amazing mentor by the name of Barb Stiffarm. And I worked under her in different capacities, from the grant writing, then we had to facilitate the grants if we were awarded those. Long story short, Flint Co. came to Fort Belknap to build 2 Indian Health Service facilities, and the crew around me said, go for it, go for it. To this day, I remember the ladies that hyped me up, and I continue to go back and I thank them, because that wasn't my path, but if they hadn't encouraged me, who knows where I'll be. So first and foremost, I am a fierce believer in faith and the path in those that come in front of me, and I follow that path. And through that journey, I ended up going to work for Flint Co. August will be 32 years of working for a corporate construction company representing all tribes. I've worked in 7 regions throughout the United States. I spent 18 years in the field, started as a project coordinator, ending as a project manager, as well as superintendent experiences as I ran jobs as needed. The most recent was facilitating a medical equipment contract from the Indian Health Service. First time it had ever been put in a contractor's budget. Long story short, today I am the interim executive director for Native Women Lead, where we provide technical assistant, wraparound services, as well as access to capital for our community across Turtle Island, which is both on sovereign lands as well as urban communities. And our focus is character and relationship-based lending. I sit on Fort Belknap's investment board, and we are moving towards our first steps at that model with 7 entrepreneurs on the reservation. I believe in capacity building of our people, and my goal is to continue to build capacity in both workforce as well as contractors, and leaving as many dollars on the reservations or in our Indian community as possible. So look forward to hearing the rest. I don't want to take any more time, but thank you for having us here today. This is what it's about, is where we all come together and identify how we're stronger in numbers, and we represent Montana, true and true. At the end of the day, I'll come back to Montana, and it'll be my family that sings my journey songs. And so the work that I do, wherever I'm at, I keep that in mind and that in front of me. So thank you.
Thank you so much. By the way, Vernell's mom and my mom went to school together, and Dr. Margaret Campbell was a former state legislator and just such an influential woman in our Indian community and Montana, really. So thank you guys so much. My next question is, would you please give us your perspective on leading and succeeding in male-dominated industries? I think when we did a little pre-conversation before this, we were like, oh wow, we all work in fields that lend themselves to be male-centric, and so I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
So I'll start this one, because I'm in ag. So, which means it is very male-centric, but interestingly enough, all of the wives actually own the businesses, and they're doing like DBA, right? So I think the whole DEI conversation is really interesting, where I had to remind my father that he was wildly successful in construction in Montana because it was a woman-owned business, and he benefited from DEI policies his entire life. He didn't like that. And you know, for me, I'm really, there's a challenge, right? You know, like you walk into a room, and for me, I am in rural small town bars with farmers who have been working all day, and I have found they're very interested in what I have to say and are the least problematic for me of all of the people I work with, because they just want to have profitable businesses. They don't care whose ideas it comes from, right? The bigger challenge to me is really at the policy level, where, you know, like I'm going to DC next week. I hope this isn't recorded. I'm taking, like, I mean, we talked about strippers earlier today, so I feel like it's all fair game. Yeah. So I'm taking my harem of really, really smart white dudes with me because I know that when I am sitting in an office, right, sometimes that's what you need. You have to have the right messenger for the right person to get things accomplished. And I think that there's an amount of compromise that I'm okay with, that, 20-year-old me wouldn't have been okay with. But now I realize you have to have the right messenger for the right person, because you can't bust your way in and say, you will respect me. But you can show them through hard work and commitment and dedication. And so where I started and where I am is very different, because I was able to think strategically about who's the right voice at the right time with the right audience. And then, another gratuitous shout out, I have some really incredible men who have mentored me, who have worked with me, who have opened more doors for me, quite honestly, than any woman ever has, aside from the women sitting on this panel right now. And so I think that I love the question because I think it's relevant, but I think we do ourselves a disservice if we don't recognize that there are, half of us are men, in this, right? And they are opening doors. We wouldn't be here if men didn't open doors at some point. And so I really value people and the ways that they can engage and think critically and reflect upon what they can do to advance other people regardless of sex, but also, you have to use your strengths. If you have a whole toolkit, I'm not going to get out the hammer if I need the screwdriver, and sometimes I need the hammer, right? And sometimes I need the screwdriver, but sometimes I need my harem of really smart, talented white farmers. And so I think that that's what you do, right? And I think that comes with maturity and wisdom, and strategy matters, right? Where when you get over thinking about these binaries and the things that we're taught to separate ourselves with, and actually embrace people and find just really great people and then cut the ones who aren't out of the equation. I think that for me, that has been how I have been successful.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to just build off of what Holly said because it's true. And I love the 20-year-old me wouldn't have been good with the 52-year-old me today, but I'd say that it came to me in my late 20s, early 30s that use the resources around you. And the men around me, they'd say it in different ways, but I remember I had to go to Alabama to do a cultural, what they called sensitivity training. And I said, first of all, let's take sensitivity out of the title. It's a diversity training. We don't need anybody to be sensitive. This is diversity. And the comments, I don't think safety was the issue, nor do I think racism was the issue. So let's really look at what the problem is here, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to Alabama. What am I going to say to a room full of construction guys that are the best in the industry? They're the best. Their success is mine and mine is theirs. And so I wasn't going to come in there and bash heads and try to, make my point known. And so literally I went to my tool belt, my tools, and I picked my arsenal. And a superintendent that did a job in Twin Buttes, North Dakota during the Bakken oil boom and ended up being a pallbearer for an individual in that community. The point being is he had a good heart, he knew the business, and he followed through in what he said he would do, and he was welcomed into the community so much that they made him a part of that community. So I knew he was the right guy, as well as an executive at a level that made a lot of money in Indian country and knew how to do it and do it right. And so I brought them along with me and started out talking about football. Roll Tide, first of all. I'm a Bama fan, so I was like, okay, I can make this happen. And I started out talking about football and understanding the rules of football. If you're going to play the game, you want to know the rules in order to play. And that's doing business in Indian country. What are the rules? And I'm here to help you with those rules, is the way that I started. And these gentlemen right here are going to talk about the way that they got it done. Long story short, absolutely. It's not about us, and for me, it was keeping my eye on the goal at the end of that project. What is the anticipated goal for everybody? How do we get there? I swallowed my pride a long time ago and understood that my family is first and foremost. My health is first and foremost. Not me trying to get a whole room full of individuals that are never gonna hang out with each other. We're not drinking whiskey, we're not smoking cigars, we're not going to church together, we're not having brunch together. We have a job to do. And that success at that job is the goal, period. And so that's been the focus and how I've operated in a male-dominant world. And every time I'm ready to go off or give somebody a piece of my mind, I think of my son, my father, my grandfather, who was a Bataan Death March survivor. And, I can take it. You can cuss me out. I've been yelled at because I couldn't identify that black heifer in a herd of 50 black heifers. So you can't hurt my feelings. I got rhino skin, man. So let's have it. And that is, and humor. Humor is medicine. It really is. And I think I'm funny, so I think that's part of it. And again, it's through my perspective. This microphone was meant for me. So. And with that, Jennifer.
So I have a couple of things I would say on this. One is, how to be successful in a male-dominated world. I'm going to give huge credit to Montana and to all of you Montanans. I always feel like Montana is way ahead of this, than everywhere else in the United States. Like, Montana men support Montana women and vice versa.
Yes, let's give a hand for that.
When I'm back in Washington with tribal leaders, I'll always point out, well, you know who had the first female member of Congress? Montana. Nobody's ever worried about what the gender makeup is in the room. It's, are you a normal person with social skills? Who are your relatives? What do you have to talk about? And recognizing other people who are lifting you up, creating opportunities, and making sure that you're doing that for other people. And Cora and Hannah and putting this together, they deserve a big hand, what they're doing. We were visiting earlier about how Governor Gianforte has been an incredible mentor to them and to all of us variously too. And I was sharing a story about how he was at a big fundraiser. We were there with 250 people, a lot of whom were big donors. But he picked a 9-year-old Northern Cheyenne girl to sit next to him at dinner. And he talked to her the whole time and paid attention to no one else, which the big donors were not so happy about that, but she will remember that for the rest of her life, that the governor of Montana cared enough to lift her up. So, and that happens by, remembering people's names when you meet them, saying hi to the staff, saying thank you. And when I'm with senators or, U.S. Supreme Court justices in a setting, I'll go get them a water or a coffee. I'll notice if they've been talking for an hour and no one has handed them a cup or given them a bathroom break, and say, can I get, what can I do to make you more comfortable for what you're doing for me and my community right now? And just kind of having that humanity toward people and assuming the best in other people, I think is also a really key thing, especially in the polarized political times in Washington. If you can put that aside and just talk to people relationally as one human to another, I think we do so much better. Another thing I did early in my career that I think helped me a lot was to always say yes, to always be, I'll work on this class action case that has nothing to do with tribes. I'll do the securities litigation. I'll work the weekend and do some oil and gas deal I know nothing about, because I could take some little nugget from any of those things and put it to use for tribes someday. And just being open to the skill sets and the opportunities that will come to you through divine intervention. We all said a prayer behind stage before we came out here, and this happened. So, acknowledging the role of faith in our cultures is I think, very critical to our success. And I guess kind of the last point I would say is not to be afraid to embrace your femininity and your matriarchal role, whatever that is. When I was at Harvard, there were a lot of women who were struggling to behave like the men and try to say, well, I'm very serious. And whether it was how they dressed or what they would talk about. And I'm like, well, I made cupcakes, because I like baking. And I made Jell-O shots. That got everyone to loosen up. But I cooked all the time, and I would bring food into class. And another woman who was very rich New York East Coaster said, "Don't you think the men will think you're weak if you're cooking?" I'm like, "No, they got to eat. Why is that? Why was that a negative?" And this idea that you have to conform to somebody else's idea of gender roles, screw that. We're Westerners. I'm not going to stop doing things that I enjoy. Or that are important to me because it makes somebody else more comfortable. And another example is, I took my children with me on work trips all the time when they were very little. And I was a nursing mom, and I'm like, I got to take the kid. And so my babies would be with me, and my colleagues at this big multinational law firm would be freaking out, like, what, you're taking your baby on a work trip? I'm like, I'm going to a tribal council meeting. They won't even be the only baby in the room. Like, like people just have this really constrained idea of what an image of success looks like, and it's not success if it doesn't work for you and your family. So you've got to keep those priorities close to your heart, because if you're doing something and you don't like it and it's not working for your kids, then it's not going to work. You need to have that whole wellness about your career.
So to Chris, like we were all super positive, and I just want to add, I mean, we have another question, but I think, as I was looking around the room and, you kind of like look at people's faces, it would be disingenuous to say that this is everyone's experience, right? And I think just to make sure that for those of you who may not have or will not have that experience, like that is also a very valid and real experience. And so, and I've been in those positions as well, and in other areas of my life. And I think that to that end, I think there has to be an accountability and a discernment and building your network and knowing who can help you when it comes down to that, so you don't make yourself a bigger target, or so you don't get inadvertently in the crosshairs of, there's just all of these weird things, like people are people. And so I think being really discerning about who helps you, who you network with, and what that network looks like, and ensuring that you have mentorship and you have people who can also give you a second opinion is vital, because like for us, we're also of a very sort of singular disposition where like I would dare somebody to get into my way, right? Like I just would dare you to. But I know that there are a lot of people who are not like me, and there are a lot of women who are smarter than me, more capable than me, and far more talented than me, who aren't sitting in this seat because they don't have that advocacy. And so find your network and use your network, and ensure that if you are going through something, do not keep it a secret and keep it quiet. Seek out help so you can correct it early, rather than let it fester or find yourself in a different career field because you didn't understand necessarily how to handle it.
And if you can, get Misty Cool in your network, because
Cool.
she's the most amazing person, and a lot of you already know this, but Misty has been such a catalyst for tribal inclusion and really being part of the fabric of Montana in a very unifying way. Because Misty will stand there and take it in tribal communities when everyone's yelling around about the latest issue. And that can be really uncomfortable for all of us as Native women when there are very deeply and sincerely held emotional issues, a lot of complex feelings that happen, especially in intergovernmental relations, and being able to translate that, stand in the fire, take it, and then use that to say, I'm going to help you the next time. What do you need? How can I connect you to this person or that person? Get 5 business cards in this meeting and follow up with them. And you never know what's going to come of that, but just being in this room, you all want the highest and best for women in Montana business, and that's all we need.
And I'm just a little bit building off of both of these, it's true. It's not an easy journey. Life isn't easy. Anything that good comes with discipline and accountability. And we're not up here to, our personal journeys and all the bad things that happen, because we can do that all day long. But instead is the solution. And each and every one of us are on a path that is solution-based. Native Women Lead. I'm building buildings over here about bricks and mortar, quality schedule, budget, and utilization. Over here, I'm doing advocacy work and evening the playing field out. Native American women are 57 cents on the dollar to our counterpart. I could pull out a whole lot of stats, but we've got a plan in place, and we're putting our heart and our action. And at 52 years old, I have a whole lot of passion and a whole lot of energy, intelligence, and a network that's been built over 32 years. And I can't be everywhere. And there's so much work that has to be done. The connectivity and the network, your personal and your professional network, is so key in maintaining those relationships regardless of where you're at, and maintaining your core values. At the end of the day, what are you willing to give up, and what are you willing to fight for, and stand by that? And she said, there are so many more individuals that are greater than I, but I'm either with the word here. I don't want to be self-derogatory here, but I'm confident and I move forward in faith, grace, and action. And therefore, I know the majority of my efforts and I do and will be done are in good and are going to turn out. Those that don't, I'm okay with that because I know what my majority is.
Thank you so much. Whew, wow. So let's see. What is your, I'm like, there's so much to unpack. What is your best advice for non-Native women for making connections in tribal communities? One of the reasons I asked that question, and I told these guys earlier, I get asked that all the time by non-Native people. How do we reach out? How do we make connections? Can I go to a powwow? Can I wear the jewelry? And so really I'm posing this question that I hope is helpful for many of you in this room.
I think I'm up first, so thank you. We're all human. There's nothing any different. Our journeys are so much alike, so similar. I always say find your tribe, but in this particular scenario, I need to change that terminology. But, in general, Native American people were communal. We're inclusive. We feed. We love to feed. Man, we love to eat together. When you break bread together, it's really challenging to go for somebody's throat or these negative things. Because at the end of the day, we know we're stronger in numbers. Everybody has trauma. There's a little understanding of, just the history. And through a non-emotional lens, what is that history? So how do you opening doors for individuals in our spots. Native Americans, we have educated, passionate, we're there, we're in business, we've been in business for a long time. We are here, ready to flourish, we need nourish. And so, when there's an opportunity for a role to be filled by somebody, tap into your resources. Who do you know? Who can fill that role that has the credentials, the capability to make things happen. And so when I'm sorry if I'm jumping around here a little bit, because at the end of the day, there's not one approach. I remember the Corps of Engineers put a card together on doing business in Indian country. And there was 3 things on there, and it doesn't change much. Listen more than you talk, be prepared to sit and eat, and a token of appreciation, a pin, something, a piece of food or jerky, things of that nature as a gift coming in.
A check written out to Misty Cool.
Oh, cool, right? Everywhere I go, I take Fort Belknap beef jerky, Belknap dry meat, and that's my opening of doing business with tribes. And a lot of times it's just to listen. What are your needs? Well, we might not be able to fill them through Native Women Lead or for Flintco, but I guarantee you, I have a contact that can. And just pause. Be sincere in understanding the anticipated goal and how can I help or we help with our network to get there. Because again, everything, growth, economy, healthcare, education, Indian country's not any different. We want to build and be stronger in all of those areas. Together, it makes Montana stronger. If we're just focused here in Montana states and the tribes, and so how can we continue to drop the borders and not compartmentalize and work together to be stronger? And I know we can. I've seen it across borders, government, municipalities so many times, is just be sincere in your efforts, and honestly, I can't see where it goes wrong as long as you're sincere in your efforts and there's a mutually benefit for all parties. Kind of simple.
Yeah, thank you.
I would say just showing up and participating in the community events that are so important, like basketball. Obviously, we're into March now, and the things that are unifying just culturally, across Montana, being part of those events, community and school fundraisers, going up to somebody, in those meetings and say, can you tell me about what you do? And I heard you worked with this ag tech engine. Can you tell me more about that? And the connectivity that comes with just those, again, basic social interactions. It doesn't have to be staged and prepped, but just showing up and having food, going to events, and yes, you can wear jewelry. Like you can wear the clothes. Like it's totally
Buy
fine.
our products.
Yes. Please, yes.
Lots of it. Wholesale. Buy our buffalo meat.
Yeah.
By the way, this is, my dress is Chokecherry Creek Designs. The designer, her name is Angela Howe. Please write it down, Google her. Her products are amazing. And my earrings were beaded by Carrie Moran McCleary. She is Little Shell, and she has Instagram and also a website. Her beadwork is stunning. So I'm great segue to plug right now for a couple of native designers.
And I mean, Montana and North Dakota, like some of the best native designers in the country are actually coming out of this space, something many of you may or may not know. For me, it's about relationships, and start the relationship before you start the business. So what I do with our engine, I'm really focused on how do you build cross-cultural understanding, because a rural native farmer and a rural non-native farmer have the very same issues, right? And to that end, then, we create opportunities to have those intentional collisions where we come together to solve problems together. I have everyone who works with the engine, we take them to ceremony. We have a lodge keeper who will explain to them the ceremony and why it matters. We take them out to a bison harvest. We do a lot of those things. And then conversely, we take our tribal folks to the Corner Bar, right, in Oaks, North Dakota, and we have meetings there because, again, we're more similar than different. But, I mean, I couldn't add to anything else that people said, but what I get asked a lot, and I think is important, is people will always say, like, can you introduce me to, right? And I've learned a lot with working with Misty in terms of kind of like, how do you respond to some of the ways that people ask you to connect? Because it does have to be reciprocal. In my world, it has to benefit the tribe more than you, or else I'm not doing it. And there are these different nuances of working with tribal communities that I think get taken for granted, where you're not just asking me to give you Jennifer Weddle's phone number. You're asking me to compromise my friendships, my family connections, my holidays, everything good in my world, right? My support network. Because if you do something within those communities where you wanted a connection and you've used me, I'm putting my reputation on the line to ensure that you have access. And that's something that, that's the biggest challenge I've had with it is, it's really hard to tell people, like, I think you're doing really great work, but no. Because we're not a checkbox. And, the first question was like, how did you get to your position? I got to my position because I was a checkbox, that they knew they wouldn't get the award without having me on it, and they intended to get rid of me as soon as we got the award, right? NSF said, no. We're going to put her in charge of this, right? NSF didn't do this. The North Dakota partners did this, right? And then NSF corrected it. And so I think that is also something very important, is think about what you're asking and why, and build the relationships first, and don't assume that there's not far more at risk for us to connect you than there is for you to connect.
Powerful. Thank you so much. Last question, and this is also a question I'm posing to every person in this room. Please complete the following sentence. I am a powerful person because...
I can start on that one, because I've been thinking about this. I saw the list of questions in the hotel last night. I'm like, oh, I need to be prepared. Mine is very simple. I'm a powerful person because I have surrounded myself with powerful people and have modeled what it means to bring people along with me to then help really build that capacity and create the conditions for empowerment where they too can be powerful people.
Thank you.
I'm a powerful person because I don't care if I get credit for what I do or not. And I very much care about making sure other people get the credit, and will always thank and include everyone, no matter how small a role they played in whatever the achievement was, and give it back to all of them so that we're all equally invested in whatever the success is. And it'll come back to you tenfold. It's just putting good things out into the universe, and that will come back to you. Whereas if you put, and culturally, that's very much what we believe. If you put bad medicine, if you put negativity out into the world, you're going to get it back worse. So making sure that you're staying true to that central cultural tenet of making sure it benefits the tribe more than you individually.
Thank you.
You are so good at that. Yeah, right.
I am a powerful person because of my faith, grace, and my action, and my understanding and acceptance of the responsibilities that I carry as a sovereign citizen of the United States of America, and the responsibility that I carry for my ancestors, my upbringing, and the sacrifices that all of those before me made, especially my mother, my father, and my stepfather that raised me. And I own that, and the responsibility that I have to leave the ladder down for those that are coming behind me, and making it just a little bit easier any way that I can. And that's my power.
Thank you. I'm a powerful person because my success does not depend on anybody's failure. I root for everyone. And I think what I love about that is my lifetime, my 53 years of experiences, good and bad and traumatic and wonderful and painful and joyful, have lent itself to what I'm doing and have been called to do right now in this moment. And I'm also a powerful person because I've got friends like these. They're wonderful. So thank you so much. I love you guys. We've got about 6 minutes, which means I think we could do 1 or 2 questions. Does anybody have a question?
Thank you so much. My question is, and we were talking a little bit earlier, but I wonder if there's any news within your communities that you would love for the rest of us to know about and talk about or bring something to light.
Thank you. That's a great question. And I don't know if, I know I'm not the only one in this room that has news whiplash from the last couple of days, but what I'm happy to share is I'm very, very focused, and our administration is very focused on economic development for our tribes. What that means for me is to raise household income, reduce poverty, bring economic stability to families, and then a host of other social issues tend to disappear when that happens, right? So that's the news. If anybody here has any interest in doing business in Indian country, please give me a call.
Thank you, Misty. First of all, can we get a round of applause for Misty for bringing us all together? Thank you. A couple of things. So Reservation Economic Summit 2026 is coming up in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's a standing conference where all Indian country comes together. There are some good tracks here. Native Women Lead, we have a track at the event. We invite everybody to come. That's a great place to do business. You don't necessarily even have to register. Go feel it out. Be honestly, you check it out, and it's a lot to register. So, look at this track, see if it's something you would like. But also through Native Women Lead, we have a Capital Summit, April 21st through the 23rd in Albuquerque, New Mexico, called Trading at the Rio. It is in conjunction with the Gathering of Nations powwow, which is the last dance. It's a powwow that's been held for 25 years in Albuquerque, and we're working in conjunction with them to host the Capital Summit, and it will consist of Indian female business owners throughout Turtle Island as well as Canada. And so we welcome you all to come and join us. If you'd like any more information, please feel free to reach out, and we are welcome to host you. Thank you.
I'll let you go last, because you can talk about our people, and I'll talk about more broadly. Okay.
I'm going to talk about bison.
Oh, yeah, me too. I love bison.
There we go, see? Divine.
It's divine. So a few things. We're really excited. We are working with a number of tribes across the region, including Montana tribes, to think about controlled environment and growing, right? Like, how do we produce more food for communities? How do we really think about food security? And then we're also building a bison processing facility and working with some really interesting scientists who are thinking about bison herd management that's culturally appropriate. So we have drones that mimic crows, and we have sensors. It's really cool. We have a bison cam, and it's so fun. and you get them from the time they're babies to grown, right? And so I think those are some of the things we're doing, right? I think oftentimes it's easy to think about Indian country from a deficit perspective because all you hear are the headlines that more likely than not aren't even accurate, right? And certainly don't characterize our people as how they are. And so I think that the news is we're developing entrepreneurs and businesses and driving food security and leading the way. So one of the things that I think has been most impressive to watch that more likely than not very few people know about is Indian country has been really instrumental in protecting a lot of the different pieces of the federal government that affect you every day in Montana in terms of the different federal agencies, the different types of cuts, the employment, Indian health services. And so it's, you know, similar to the Civil Rights Act, where very few people know that a Comanche woman was instrumental in getting Nixon to sign the Civil Rights Act. Most people don't understand in our contemporary context the work that tribes and tribal communities are doing behind the scenes, because regardless the administration, we have challenges. Okay? And so, I mean, largely, like, Jen will not take credit, but really helping to organize and think about who are the experts and who's doing it. And I think that that is a newsworthy story because people want to talk about what's wrong and all of the trauma stories, and what they don't talk about is what's right. And you have, you know, a group of Native people who are advocating on your behalf every day, despite not necessarily having the same opportunities on a reservation that we have off of the reservations.
So I'll pick up on this thread of bison and how important bison are culturally for tribes. They're a source of healing. They're our relatives. We don't have time for the creation story, but we can do that another time. But I wanted to pick on something that Vernell said. The Reservation Economics Summit coming up a few years ago, there was with a group of, you know, about a dozen Native professionals, all of a certain vintage, and we're having a fancy dinner in Las Vegas, and we're thinking this, you know, like, wow, we're here, and look where we started, and, you know, how lucky we are, you know, given the circumstances of some of our relatives. And then we got a text, we all started getting texts in the middle of the dinner that, and this was in March, the 13 or 14-year-old girl that year had killed herself at Rosebud. You know, so like one a week, a teenage girl killing herself. And we all just started bawling in this fancy restaurant, and the waiter comes over and was like, but it was this moment where we're like, why are we all doing what we're doing? It's to bring that healing to the communities. And bison are a central part of that for tribes, and that's why I'm working really hard on grazing issues, both in terms of appeals of BLM leasing decisions, and then the newsworthy item is that the USDA and the Department of the Interior have a new intersecretary MOU coming out on grazing. I was actually on a call on that in the hallway a few minutes ago, and tribes have very much been having a seat at the table working with the administration on that. It's great for land restoration, for bison rematriation, for the health of our foods, for our food sovereignty, our food security. We like to say all the time, food security is national security, and tribes are very much at the forefront of that, and we're seeing that translated now in some of the federal administration policies coming out. And so I think that's a newsworthy moment that has come out of the unity that we all have as Montanans and Westerners in lifting that up and making it happen.
That was such a great question. I kind of wish I'd asked it, but I'm so glad you did. So we're out of time, and before we go, I want to, of course, thank these wonderful, wonderful women and my friends. I'd also like to thank the sponsors of this event, and big shout out to Sheridan. This was a big lift. And also there was, I don't know if many of you know, there was like a little advisory committee that helped plan this. And so also thank you to the members on that for putting together such a fantastic event. And thank you for being here and listening to us talk today.